everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright. Right over there, habitually, Nikki Kinzer. How are you this fine Friday afternoon?
I'm good. It's a little busy in our household. We've got school starting this week, and that's crazy because I am one of those parents. Hold on and get ready. Yeah. I am not looking forward to this.
What?
I'm not.
Why?
Because it's interesting because I had a conversation with my sister the other day and she's like, "Oh, aren't you so excited? Your kids are going back to school." I'm like, "No, I'm not, because I don't like, or I should say I like the lack of structure."
I don't even know what to say to that given this show.
I know.
You're breaking everyone's brains.
I know. I'm just being truthful.
I like that. That's good.
But yes, I liked the lack of structure, and I liked just sort of, being able to kind of just do what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it. And it was just been a nice summer, and I still managed to get a lot of work done, but I just didn't have to necessarily do it at a certain time. And now that they're back in school, I have to get up at a certain time. I have to help them get ready. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I can relate to that. We're a split house right now. So one of my kids is back in school, the other is not, and it really has highlighted the central frustration for me, which is the summer is long and they're ready, and my daughter is ready. She's bursting at the seams to have something to do. And so that's the part for me that I don't like to watch. Like, it's just, I feel for her that the world has moved on to back to school mode, and this one district is still,
waiting,
plodding away for the after Labor Day start, and the house is quiet, and she's just, she knits. She's knitting. She's literally a spinster, and so she's she blessedly track has started. So cross country started this week, and she has been 3 to 5. She's been running, and that has been a massive relief for her energy level, just to be able to burn something off at the afternoon. But
absolutely.
But it's hard. It is really hard. And so I'm with you. I also like the lack of structure. I think we're both sort of blessed with having that freedom to make good use of it during the summer. But my goodness, I hate watching them frustrated. It's good to watch them bored, but when they're frustrated, that's a different story.
Well, and they have to learn.
Yeah.
I guess they do have to go and learn some things.
Right.
So,
truly.
But yes, that, so it's bittersweet. I mean, I think that it's probably going to be good for me in a lot of ways. It's going to be good for definitely, like you said, the kids but yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm just kind of like, about it, but that's all right. That's all right. Once we get back into the routine, it's going to be all good. So.
Routine is great. So did they start this week, or they're starting next week?
Well, they start this week.
Okay.
Yeah. So they haven't actually started. My daughter starts tomorrow, and then my son starts the next day. So
all right, there you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's all good. And we are talking about tiny habits again today, a little bit of a refresh. Very much looking forward to that. Before we dig in, head over to TakeControlADHD.com. Get to know us a little bit better. Of course, listen to the show right there on the website, or subscribe, please, 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 to the mailing list. You'll get an email when the latest episode arrives each week. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD, and call us at 503-664-4ADD and get your question, your thoughts, your voice on this very show. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget, Organizing Your Space Your Way added some additional content to it this week, yes?
Yes, I did.
Very exciting.
A couple little audio videos and a new article, and yeah. I love doing that. Never
a better time to jump into Organizing Your Space Your Way at TakeControlADHD.com. It's a self-directed, fantastic tool that will guide you through organizing any space in your home.
And it's self-guided, but you do have support. So if you have a question, you're going through the program and you're not really sure how it applies to you, you have the opportunity to write that question down in the comment section, and somebody, either myself or somebody else from my team, will get back to you. And you never know, somebody that's taking the course could very well get back to you as well and share their ideas.
Excellent. So check that out. TakeControlADHD.com. It's right there on the homepage.
Absolutely.
Love to see you in there. That's it. Okay. We're still talking about habits. Where would you like to pick up on this theme of habits and the role habits play in managing ADHD.
Well, obviously this has been on my mind.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is the second week that we've been talking about it. And, as we said last week, it just plays such a huge role in how we manage ADHD, and just having these, routines and structures in place, really are important. But what I've noticed is that people have a hard time starting small. Even if we say, hey, start small, start small. Right. It's still really hard to know what that even means. And, what I think is small may be too small, or what somebody else thinks is small is going from a list of 10 to 5, and they think that's good. And that still may be setting them up to fail. So, this week, I really just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what small means, and, not getting into that, or not falling into the trap of, starting too big, because boy, I've done that so many times. And then what happens is I think, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this on Monday. Monday happens and I'm really good about it on Monday, but then Tuesday and Wednesday, I don't do it. And I think, okay, I'm going to start next Monday.
Yeah, right.
And it's just so awful. So that's what I want to talk about. But before I talk about my suggestions, I'm curious to know from you, Pete, if you can think of a time where you started small with a new habit and what that was, just to give people kind of an example of that. Oh, and the other thing that I forgot to mention is I really want to wrap this around productivity. Because if we just kind of talk about habits, in the broad sense, and just it's too general, then it doesn't really help. So I'm narrowing that down to just being more productive.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I have two that I'm thinking about, both of which we've talked at some length on the show in the past, one more recently than the other. I'll start there briefly, and that is around learning new things. We talked about memory and sleep and apps to help you learn when you go back to school several weeks back.
Yes.
And the app that I have been thinking about that this question brings up is Quizlet. And for me, it has been all around using, figuring out what is a new thing I want to learn, something modest, something not too, I don't want to, be a particle physicist, I don't want to learn a whole new domain. But let's just say I want to learn a few words to get me around China. I'm going to China later on, or early 2017. I want to learn a few words. And so I found a great modest little flashcard deck for Quizlet, and I put that in there and started learning some words in Chinese. And the little notifications that pinged me each day for just 1 minute that said, hey, review this real quick, just real quick. That was one that really helped me, and now Quizlet is home to all of my learning. But it I don't think it would have taken on if I had, or really gained momentum for me if I had tried to put everything I was doing in Quizlet all at once. This is just one way for me to learn. The other, around specifically productivity, is in going paperless.
Yes.
And for me, that was huge, that it was dipping my toe into Evernote as a paperless management tool, and figuring out what are the things that I want to start archiving in the recycle bin and maintaining digitally, one bill or one statement at a time. And now I can confidently say I'm completely paperless. Everything from daily mail to, to notes, meeting notes, to checks and bills and statements. Everything has a system that ties in there. But for me, it was every day at the same time, have an appointment on my calendar that says, what is something that I could scan today? What is a system I could scan today? Before I take on every single filing cabinet that I had in my house and my office, it was just one small thing that I could do.
I love that. And that's a great example, because you have to start small with that project. For sure. Well, I'll tell you, for me, it was a long time ago when you first introduced me to OmniFocus.
Oh, hallelujah.
Yes. And it's interesting because I remember you telling me about it, because prior to this, what I had, and this is using OmniFocus in a very simple way. So again, it's actually like starting at very, a very small step in using OmniFocus and getting into the habit of using OmniFocus.
Sure,
so,
just as a task list, just like let's start by getting data in it.
That's exactly where I started, because my habit was to have several notes and papers around my office about random ideas and things I wanted to do. And especially like not so much daily to-dos, but it was those like business ideas, you know, like, hey, I'm going to do 3 websites instead of just one.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
Remember the membership program I tried?
I'm telling you.
Okay. Yes, I'm a true entrepreneur who has tried things and failed, but I'm still here. So that is where the OmniFocus really helped me, is to get into the habit of not writing these business ideas onto a piece of paper that I was never going to see again, but to actually dump it into the inbox inside of OmniFocus. So for me, this was a game changer, because then I started using it more as a to-do list and, breaking up these tasks and realizing the membership program wasn't for me or you. And it just didn't work. So, moving on to the next thing. So it was, that was huge for me. Definitely.
That's it's really important, I think, the idea of iteration in habits too. And I hope you talk more about that, because it particularly around the ADHD mind, because just building a habit and achieving it sometimes is its own end. And that's a problem that I have found that I run into in the past, and colleagues of mine who also deal with this run into it in the past. Once you feel like you have mastered something, that's a really dangerous precipice that you're standing on, because then you sort of want to move on. And
well, then you have to talk more about that, because I don't have that in my outline here today. So talk more about that, please.
Oh, well.
So how is that dangerous?
Well, because
what happens?
Well, because then, so let's just say this is, I'll give you an example around fitness, for example. So I was totally obsessed with the 25 pull-ups app. Right. This fantastic fitness coach came up with a series of apps. It's like, do you think you can't do 25 pull-ups? I'll bet you inside of 6 weeks, I can get you doing 25 pull-ups. If you do this thing, follow this app, do it every day. And I did it. I did it every day. I did the whole thing every day. And I did 25 pull-ups at the end of 6 weeks. And I was so proud of myself. And then I stopped doing pull-ups. It didn't become, it was targeted to become a habit, to make doing pull-ups as part of a fitness routine a habit. But because I attacked it in this way, like achieving 25 pull-ups became the goal, and once I was done, I was done.
It was a challenge for you more than it was a habit.
And I wanted it to be a habit. I deeply wanted it to be a habit. But every time I went up to the pull-up bar, I was like, I can do 25 of these. I think I'll go eat a donut instead. Because I'd already achieved the 25 pull-ups. That was a thing I'd already done. And so, that happens. That has happened. Speaking about the paper, it was a habit for a long time. And then as soon as I start to realize, hey, I'm paperless. Once I said I'm paperless, then, oh my goodness, I'm so paperless that I didn't see that stack of receipts that was piling up on the end table. I'm so paperless that I didn't notice that these bills, the Daily Mail, hadn't been scanned in the last 2 weeks. I'm so paperless that suddenly the system started to break down because I had moved on to something else. And the nice part about it is, just as a caveat around the paper thing, when that happened, because I had a system in place, I knew what that habit was all about. And so once I recognized there was a problem, it was really easy to get it under control.
Right, because you're not starting from scratch.
Absolutely.
I mean, you just have to kind of just take the time to catch up. And
once I realized, hey, I can schedule this, I can do it, and I can get it right, and everything will be scanned, and I'll be back to normal. It'll take a few minutes. That's fine. The real trick was recognizing that achieving a goal is not the same as establishing a habit. And that is a trigger for me. Like, I have to be consciously aware of that every day, or I will not be able to establish long-term habits.
So that's what you're doing then, is just that awareness that it could be a potential roadblock for you, and knowing that, no, this is a habit. It's not just a challenge, right? To keep doing it. So that's sort of the motivation there.
Motivation and permission to think about this in a different way. Like, because I'm such a believer in the power of habit and in building habits, but for my brain, if I don't stop and think of this, like, I have to constantly say, this isn't a goal, this is a journey. This isn't a goal, this is a journey. getting to 25 push-ups is only the first step toward 50 pull-ups,
Well, and you know what? When you say that, it reminds me of like everything that I teach around organizing is that it's not just a one-time process. It is a journey. It is an ongoing thing. You don't just organize your space once and then expect that it's going to be like that forever.
Precisely.
Same thing with the pull-ups. You're not going to just do 25 pull-ups and think that you're going to be in shape forever. So that makes sense. But I have to just say too that I've seen a lot of times where people beat themselves up because they'll see the receipts or they'll see that they haven't done the pull-ups for a while and then they just kind of give up on it altogether. Like, okay, the system didn't work. I failed. It failed. I'm going to move on to something else. How do you get past that of just the shame that maybe you feel around not being as consistent as you would like to be?
I'll tell you, for me, it's my built-in accountability partner. My wife, if I didn't have her to be able to say out loud to her, I'm struggling with this right now. I'm feeling broken. If I didn't have the sort of patience and permission in her to be able to share that vulnerability and that weakness, I don't think that I can say confidently and delicately, it would not be as easy for me to pull out of these kinds of those kinds of slumps. Right?
Support.
Yeah.
That just kind of reiterates how important support is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's hugely important. And those kinds of things, when you get into those shame spirals, my goodness, they're tough to break.
Well, and it's interesting too, because tough to break. And then it's also a representation. Like I had a client that it was just like an aha moment when she was telling me that for her, when she would stop a system, or she wouldn't go back to it. Right. So if she wasn't consistent, she wouldn't go back to it. And the reason she wouldn't go back to it is because it was such a representation to her of failing one more time. Like this was just one more thing that didn't work. And so for her, it was easier to just kind of blame herself and also blame the system and move on and not have to kind of face that.
Absolutely.
Because the system itself may not have been a bad system. It just, for whatever reason wasn't consistent for a period of time. But the good news, like you said, I think support for sure, but also what you said with the paper, especially, is that it was really easy for you to fix it. Yeah. So if you do the work, sort of at the beginning, set these systems up, keep that in mind, that it's not going to nearly be as difficult when you're just maintaining it. So,
right. And that it's okay. I mean, all of it is okay. It's okay even to feel bad about it.
Yeah. Right.
And maybe for some that's motivation in itself. Maybe that kind of feeling kind of crummy about it is not good for others. But the whole point is that, the point of developing systems is that you have a safety net when things go awry, and at least how. It's like developing a new skill. It's a new muscle. At least you know how to do a thing when it gets hard. That's really when you need to know how to do a thing, is when it's hard. That's the best time to know how to do a thing.
Well, and I think having the flexibility of knowing it's just not going to go exactly the way that you have planned or what you have in your mind. And I talk to clients about that all the time, is that even though you have this plan for the week, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to go that way. So you have to walk into it with the flexibility in mind that no judgment, don't be tied to any kind of outcome, because you just don't know. And that's okay. And then this word should comes in all the time, about they should be doing this and should be doing that. So you have to kind of call yourself on that too. It's like, okay, well, what are you comparing yourself to? And is it a fair comparison? And, why should you be like everybody else? Why can't you just be who you are and do it your way?
I have a colleague who wrote a fantastic blog post all about the should-could conundrum. Like what happens when you change your language around should and just replace the word should to could? Suddenly your entire worldview opens,
Totally changes.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I should, I shouldn't eat that, that horrible thing, but I could have eaten that horrible thing, but I chose not to. I mean, suddenly you can pivot your language. It's a quick pivot of your language, and you have a whole new way to look at life. It doesn't feel quite so awful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have these small habits that I was going to talk about, but man, I feel like we just took this to a much deeper, nicer level.
I'm sorry. I totally hijacked your thing. With one simple question, I hijacked the entire conversation. I apologize.
No, do not apologize. I think it's really important. So now we're going to go kind of back to the lighter side. Of what small habits are, like what they look like. So take the serious hat off, Pete, and we're gonna go back to just like some practical tips.
The serious hat is off.
Okay. Well, I have talked about this so many times, but a small habit that is so important for people, especially if they want to be more productive, is checking their calendar daily.
Yes.
This is the tool, right? If you feel like you have issues with time management and getting things done, I mean, your calendar is your like best friend, and it has to be the tool that you go to all the time. But what I want you to do here is, I am not asking you to evaluate your planner right now or to change your planner. I mean, I know we've talked about planners a lot lately too. I'm not asking you to do any of that. I just want you to start small and just check it. Just check it. Just get into the simple habit of looking at it first thing in the morning, and you can wrap it around something that you're already doing, like eating breakfast or, catching up on the news or whatever, but just check. Which we've talked about that too, that's not always a good thing to do in the morning.
Right. Maybe that's the first thing to do
is check your calendar.
Check your calendar instead.
Yeah, but it's just getting into that habit of always checking it, always looking at it first thing in the morning. And then eventually when that is a habit and you're doing it without thinking, and many of you out there probably are already doing this. So it's just more of a reminder if it's not happening on a daily basis, but just get into that habit of doing it daily. And then again, middle of the day, and then again in the evening. I mean, you just always want to constantly be looking at it, because this really will help you feel more in control of your schedule, your time, your to-do lists, and matching the two, like what you have to do with the time that you have available. And this is really critical for students, college students out there. I work with a lot of them, and right now, is the time to go back to school, and they're not as used to looking at their calendars as, us adults who've been out in the workforce for a while. This calendar is very new to them, and they're not used to that. So if there's any college students out there listening, or parents of college students, make sure you talk to your kiddos about, just getting into that habit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We actually just started that on my 10-year-old. He's absolutely transfixed by it. We have a shared reminders list and a shared calendar, and he's adding everying to it.
Oh, what a great habit!
It's young. It's a good one to start with. And he's got his little iPod Touch, and it is, he just has it at home on Wi-Fi, but he absolutely adores managing time and responsibilities that he can check off.
That's great.
Very handy.
Okay, habit number 2 is, this is the beginning of the habit of choosing. And what I want you to do is choose your one priority for the day, your top priority. And I know some people are probably like, oh, that's not very easy. Why are you telling me that? But remember, we're starting small, and this is just the habit of choosing. It's about prioritizing, but to-do lists can get so overwhelming so fast, right? Especially if you're looking at something that's 2 pages long. And I'm all for having a master to-do list of some sort, because I don't want you to keep it in your head. I want you to put it out somewhere. But for your daily to-do list, for the things that you have to do today, it's just not smart to be looking at that master list. It's too overwhelming. It's not effective. And you're going to be spinning in circles. So what I want you to get into the habit of is just picking one task, and don't worry too much if that's the perfect task. Did I do right or wrong here? Just pick something, because that's all you're doing, is you are just getting into the habit of choosing and feeling good about your choice. Like, okay, I did this, right? I can do this. Right. Have a plan, and get that thing done, and be, as realistic as you can be. Get support if you need to narrow it down and kind of figure out what that top priority should be. But I think, a big part of not feeling productive is really not knowing what to do. And at least this will ease that a little bit, because you'll always have that one thing that you've already chosen. So, again, it's just the habit of choosing, and this is a small step for you to start in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so habit number 3, self-care. We have to talk about self-care, because if we're going to talk about productivity, we have to talk about that, right?
That's right.
Makes sense. When we're taking care of ourselves, then you're taking care of your ADHD, and it's going to just be a lot better. If you didn't get a lot of sleep and you ate donuts for breakfast and went to McDonald's for fast food, or for lunch, you're probably going to get a little distracted. You're probably not going to be as focused in the afternoon. You're probably going to feel a little tired, a little sluggish, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to take care of ourselves. And we've talked a lot about this, but again, I just think it's such good reminders. If sleep is an issue for you, which we already know, I think 85% of adults it is. Yeah. We talk about bedtime routines and how important they are, but really just begin with one change. So it could be, just having a time where you cut off electronics, or going to bed 15 minutes earlier. And that's all you're focusing on, is going to bed at 10:45 instead of 11. Maybe having a cutoff time when it comes to eating sugar or, snacks that, aren't going to digest well when you're going to sleep, changing the temperature in your room. Don't do all these things at once. That's not what we're asking or saying, but just choose one and get that down, and then decide where you want to go next.
It's not just small, like taking small steps. It's like really metering the way you handle your daily activity. This whole idea of like drinking more water it's such a small thing that has such an incredibly large impact.
Yes. And that's actually around nutrition and just sort of like what you're feeding your body. Yeah. That was my next small habit, is that just drink more water.
Yeah.
Drink an extra glass of water.
Yeah, that's it. Just start with an extra glass of water. I think what is the current thinking is you take your weight, cut in pounds, cut it in half, and that's the number of ounces you should drink every day. Because it turns out just saying, drink 10 glasses of water, whatever that was for like when we were young, that doesn't really apply, because, we're all different sized humans.
Right.
And so I believe the current thinking is cut your weight in half, and that's the number of ounces you should drink every day. And not in giant gulps, not in giant, like drink 64 ounces at once. But drink it throughout the day. And if you can work to that, you will see a huge impact, not just in how much you eat, but how well you sleep, how like healthy your skin and face look. Your eyes won't be all sunken in, Yeah. I mean, it's
Headaches.
Amazing. Yes.
It helps with headaches.
Thing of the past.
I definitely noticed when I drink more water, I have more energy. Like I'm not as tired in the afternoon. And an easy way to start with drinking more water would be just to drink a glass of water with every meal. Like that would be an easy way. You're already eating. So instead of having a glass of milk, you're going to have, a glass of water. Instead of drinking soda, drink the glass of water. I mean, just make these easy replacements that you just don't have to think too much about. Yeah, that's right. A great way to start. And same thing with exercise. We've talked about this before too, but you don't have to exercise for an hour and a half to feel like you're getting the benefits from it. Just start small. Go, I'm going back to one push-up, right? From Mini right. Habits. Yeah.
Tie it to go into the bathroom and do a push-up every time you flush.
Right. So that's that book, Stephen Geis. So we'll have to put that in the show notes again, because I love that book. But do one push-up, do 5 minutes of walking when you're listening to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast. Do your walk around the block, while you're listening to us. I mean, it's just starting small and not putting a lot of pressure so it doesn't make it hard. It's not something that's hard. And then lastly, I just want to remind people that yes, this may be a slower way to get to your goals. You're not going to get it as fast. And I know that's really difficult with ADHD because you want it right now. But you are working on it. And even though it's taking a little bit more time, these type of the small way of doing it or the small approach is going to make it a part of your life. And that's really important. And I think also just focusing that, what you're doing right now, every choice that you're making, everything that you're doing to better your life, to help manage your ADHD. It's all great. And that's what you have to focus on, and not focus on the challenges or what you have left to do, because that's just going to get you into a rabbit hole you don't want to go into. I believe we're all works in progress, right? We all are striving to be better. Although we are still good enough just the way we are, Pete.
That's right.
Right?
Especially after we can do 25 pull-ups, then we can move on.
Yeah. And eat the donut with pride. Damn it.
That was not the coaching I expected, but thank you.
Yes. But that's I really emphasize that part, because I just, Brene Brown is my hero. And I love that that's her message, is we are good just the way we are. There isn't anything wrong with trying to strive to be different or better, but you're still good just the way you are. So don't beat yourself up.
Truly.
Be kind to yourself, and be positive and optimistic, and know that, you focus on the good, the more good is going to come your way. And, you have today, you have tomorrow, and life's a blessing. I know I'm on a soapbox right now, but well, is what it is.
I ran into another challenge to a common axiom. You always say, live each day as if it's your last. And this was a fantastic response. It was like, why would you possibly want to do that? Because you'd spend every day,
really busy day.
Exactly. You'd spend every day calling loved ones to say goodbye. And eventually that becomes old, and you would live in fear and panic about whatever comes next. Really, you would never plan. You would stop planning. And that's the upshot of it. Live every day as if it was your last. But really, you want to live every day as if you have a ton left, and can start new grand things and change yourself over time. If you live every day like it's your last, you spend all day on a roller coaster every day.
That's right.
I like that. Plan, people. Yeah. You can do it. You can learn. You can change. You can grow, because you're good enough to do it.
Yes.
That's it.
All right.
We're out. Thanks, everybody, for downloading, listening to what has to appear to have been a rather identity-challenged show.
I know, right?
But we appreciate you listening.
This is actually just proof that none of this is scripted. We go wherever we want to go.
That's or at least I am adept at hijacking your best laid plans. I'm sorry for that.
Oh, you are always welcome to hijack. Well, in that way.
In that way, right? Yeah, please.
Yeah, now we're going into paranoia.
Yeah, I know. Stop doing that. Just stop where you are. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.